Today we need to get into apparently Jung Kook at the emergency room and what that is about. We also need to get into people saying that Jung Kook was struggling for air at the camp over the tactical march. And then we need to get into Jimin and Jung Kook leaving and being late to an event. So hey dumplings, it's safe to decide hater or not. Make sure you subscribe with the notification bell on. Grab your dumpling, that's Hey Spilling Mug merch, and let's go. Jung Kook and Jimin have an interesting relationship. I do think it's overall platonic, but I do think they have a lot in common and very cute things in common. Before we get into that, I do need to talk about how this topic came about and what is going on. Well, recently Jimin and Jung Kook have been trending after a segment from their behind the scenes documentary came out. It shows many of the behind the scenes moments that we probably all didn't even know were being recorded. But I think HYBE is very good at documenting every moment that the boys have ever existed. This particular moment was the moment where BTS members did a radio interview in Korea. I do believe it during the pandemic. This was for MBC Radio, and this was a big deal because for a long time, BTS hadn't done radio or any press in Korea. Fans believed it was because they were getting treated very poorly every time they went on a media station. Others think it was because BTS felt like they could reach their fans and grow without ever being on the radio or traditional media stations. And this is very possible. A lot of artists and social media stars have opted out of appearing on traditional media because they're getting more exposure and quite frankly more money when they post on their social accounts. Celebrities doing press don't usually get paid. However, the same celebrity can post on TikTok or YouTube, reach their existing followers and new people, and not only do that but also get paid. So this idea of working with other traditional media sites, not really something that maybe HYBE or BTS felt was worth their time. BTS doing American shows are very different because the American talk shows do have a more global reach. But anyway, this was a big deal as BTS had agreed to go on it. And it was not just a radio interview, but also a visual one. Apparently, Jimin and Jung Kook were late to the radio show, and there was a clip coming out where the camera crew was recording both of them getting out of a car and rushing into the radio building. However, I believe they weren't too late because what I remember was that they didn't start yet. But even if they did, I don't believe they started too long before Jimin and Jung Kook arrived. But I want to say I never blame celebrities or entrepreneurs for being late. I know people take it as a rude thing, and it is, but I think people forget there's usually a legitimate reason as to why these specific types of occupation make people late more often. Of course, a celebrity has to look a certain way, and people as busy as entrepreneurs are often trying to utilize every tiny second of the day, and sometimes there might be 5 minutes before they get picked up to go somewhere. And they're just like, if I don't record and post an Instagram story now, I won't have time to do it until tomorrow. So they just have to use the 5 minutes to do it. And of course, these things never take 5 minutes. It usually takes like 10 or 15. So their ride is outside waiting for them. We've seen this happen with even moments where Taeyang is waiting outside of his private jet trying to get a perfect picture. Of course, that probably took like 10 minutes and he could have already been late. Most people will look at a photo as a sort of vanity thing and consider it as a rude thing. However, when vanity is a part of a job, a photo is not simply a photo. It's something that is worth millions. Because that photo, while the pilot might be annoyed or whatever it is, a simple photo probably got the specific private jet brand so many more new rich clients. And to a business, getting that level of clientele is invaluable. So things like this make people late, and you can't be too upset because it's part of their job. They're not just goofing off and then being late. There's also assumptions that celebrities don't work hard or that they're just famous for being famous. And this is tough to defend because if you're just used to seeing people being fantastic and super talented on TV or wherever, you start to think that being at that level of talent is just the normal and it's nothing special. But if you were to take that person who is super talented and put them next to someone who is not usually on TV or someone not super successful, then you start to see that the initial celebrity is actually very talented, which is why every time you have people who have met someone like Jung Kook, they almost always talk about how Jung Kook is so talented because the camera does sort of wash out talent. It normalizes it. Someone could be screaming on camera, but it comes across as normal when it's on TV. However, because of that idea, when people see celebrities exhausted or tired after a performance, they just think the celebrity is lazy. And you have people giving their 2 cents when they see Jung Kook at the hospital. This was also a clip that was posted within the recent documentary where Jung Kook was in a car and he was talking about heading to the hospital and how this was a normal thing for him. Usually he goes to the emergency room to load up on vitamins. They also tell him what he needs, and then he gets something called an IV drip. So this is a bit different from what sick patients get. Now, of course, I am not a doctor, nor do I know exactly what Jung Kook is getting, but typically celebrities get something called IV IV therapy. The best thing one can do for their body is obviously just naturally intake a lot of water. However, celebrities and dancers can't intake hydration fast enough compared to how fast they're losing it. So they can go through IV therapy to sort of inject the hydration right into their bloodstream. While sick patients, their IV is something else. Celebrities get a lot of comments about this, like they're lazy or why don't they just take care of themselves. But I'll explain this more in a bit. This is called IV therapy, and it's not anything new and has been a practice behind the scenes for many years. It's just trendy now, and it's just something that more celebrities are sharing about now. One of the more common ones back then was vitamin B12 shots. So there would be these medical tents outside on set, and they would have these long shoot days. So the celebrity needs energy. So they would take the B12 needle shots right into their butt cheek, and it would boost their energy for a little bit longer, as a lot of celebrities are in the makeup chair by 4 a.m. and don't stop shooting until 2 a.m. the next day. Not always legal, but a lot of singers aren't a part of the union, so they're allowed to do that. It's sort of a similar thing with the new IV trend. So a lot of people online were worried about him when they heard that he was doing this. This is something that is very common practice and nothing to be concerned about. It doesn't mean that every celebrity does it or that all the BTS members do it, because each member has a different body type. And what if Jung Kook also just forgets to drink water throughout the day? So then it would result in him needing to get the IV. People have been concerned over Jung Kook's overall health, especially since he seems to be struggling here. They're wondering how he is holding up in the military. I want to remind everyone that he is not going to war. None of that is happening. So that means should he experience any emergency or medical situation, he can literally get medical help. Whereas he is in more danger when he is performing or on tour, as the medical team isn't always readily available there. Not every part of the tour process is there a medic there. And then lastly, you don't want a medic because if you're on stage and you're not feeling well, you typically want to push through at least that song as to not disappoint everyone there. So Jung Kook is more likely to get faster and better medical attention while in the military. And in case you are unaware, apparently the military has been releasing the schedule in which the members will participate in things. I don't know if there is an official document of this, but people online seem to all have specific dates in which things are happening. The last few boys that enlisted had just finished their gas chamber training. It was believed that Jung Kook and Jimin were on their way to do the tactical march, except that was believed to be on January 11th. But if you're unaware of what this is, the march is supposed to be when all the soldiers come together and march a long walk with a specific strategy. The soldiers have all their equipment on them and it's very heavy. The point of this is to train on endurance, strategy, and then overall your ability to do this, because in a real battle, this would be something you would need to do. It was believed that Jung Kook was going to have a problem with this. People were scared because Jung Kook has expressed that he has rhinitis and the march might make it hard for him to breathe. And this is going to be triggering for it. And the answer is likely no. You can't trigger rhinitis from intense exercise, otherwise he would not have gotten it during a live stream, the same stream in which we found out he had it. And it's more so triggered like allergies. It's an allergen. Of course, during this time, it was believed that there was a dust situation going on in Korea, and that could be a concern, but it seemed like it was already a big concern that they had reported delaying the march. So we don't have information on when the march happened or if it was made up later. Some people online were saying that they were glad it was canceled, and since there is no time left, they would just move on. Don't think that's how that works. They don't typically move on because the soldiers still need to know how to do it. They will then work towards simulating the training by having them stand for 6 hours with the equipment inside a room or actually just rescheduling it. They don't typically cancel. But obviously, I think Jung Kook is okay, and I don't think it triggered anything for him. Let me know what you think. Make sure you check out Patreon for more videos. Link down below. Thanks for this lovely comment right here. Love you. Bye.